Far-right politics in Australia. That is, Australian political movements and individuals aligning to the far right, also referred to as right-wing extremism, is largely a phenomenon of the 20th and 21st centuries. Many of the groups included in this article are right groups rather than registered political parties. Some of the groups have had links to far-right terrorism in Australia, and some individuals have criminal convictions. In Australia, far-right politics began in earnest with the formation in 1931 of the New Guard in Sydney and its offshoot, the Centre Party, in 1933. These proto-fascist groups were monarchist, anti-communist and authoritarian in outlook. These early far-right groups were followed by the explicitly fascist Australia First movement. Since the 1980s, the term has mainly been used to describe those who advocate for preservation of what they perceive to be Judeo-Christian, Anglo-Australian culture, and those who campaign against Aboriginal land rights, multiculturalism, immigration and asylum seekers. Since 2001, Australia has seen the formation of several neo-Nazi, neo-fascist or alt-right groups such as the True Blue Crew, the United Patriots Front, Fraser Anning's Conservative National Party and the Antipodean Resistance, and others. Australian nationalism was a 19th-century movement, mostly concerned with establishing an Australian national identity that was separate from the British. But more recently, some far-right groups have also dubbed themselves Australian nationalists. An early exponent of fascist ideology in Australia was the writer and poet William Bailbridge, who was later associated with P.R. Stevenson and the Australia First movement in the 1930s and early 1940s. The Australian far-right rose out of the monarchist and anti-communist movements. Formed in Sydney on 16 February 1931, the New Guard was the first and largest fascist organisation in Australia. It was formed by World War I veteran, Australian monarchist and anti-communist, Eric Campbell. The group comprised mostly returned servicemen and claimed a membership of 50,000 at its peak, including prominent members of society such as aviator Sir Charles Kingsford Smith and former Mayor of North Sydney Hubert Primrose. The New Guard was a paramilitary organisation with its members being well armed and receiving military training. The New Guard under Campbell orchestrated a number of operations, including strike breaking, attacking Labour Party members and communist meetings. They also demanded the deportation of communists. During the initial growth of the movement, Campbell was able to attract many ex-soldiers and ex-commanders to the movement. The New Guard saw the Premier of New South Wales Jack Lang as an immediate threat. The organisation attracted attention when member Francis the Groot, on horseback and at Campbell's direction, upstaged Lang in cutting the ribbon at the opening ceremony of the Sydney Harbour Bridge in protest at Lang's anti-monarchist sentiments. After Lang's dismissal in May 1932, the New Guard's membership declined rapidly. The White Army, also known as the League of National Security, was formed in Victoria around 1931, headed by the Chief Commissioner of Victoria Police, Thomas Blamey, and described as a fascist paramilitary group. The group, which existed for about 8 years from 1931, comprised several senior army officers, including Col. Francis Durham, a Melbourne lawyer, and Lieutenant Col. Edmund Herring, later Chief Justice of Victoria. Some members had been members of the New Guard, and both groups were involved in street fights with leftist groups. This was reportedly a response to the rise of communism in Australia. Its members stood ready to take up arms to stop a Catholic or communist revolution. The Centre Party was a fascist political party formed in December 1933. Following Lang's dismissal and the demise of the New Guard, Eric Campbell established the party after he had met with European fascists and National Socialists, such as Sir Oswald Mosley and Joachim von Ribbentrop. Campbell repositioned the remnants of the New Guard away from paramilitary activities and into electoral politics. The Centre Party contested the May 1935 New South Wales state election, polling 0.60% of the total vote. Following the party's poor showing at the election, Campbell withdrew from public life and the party Disbanded. The Australia First movement was a short-lived Australian fascist movement founded in October 1941. The group was anti-Semitic and National Socialist, advocating the corporate state and a political alliance with the Axis powers of Germany, Italy and Japan. The group was disbanded in March 1942, when a number of its members were secretly interned by the Australian government on suspicion that they might attempt to provide help to Japanese invaders. 2 members were convicted of treason. Australia First movement member and former member of the Centre Party Adela Pankhurst of the Famo